Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday I get together with students and helping them understand the path to enlightenment, developing a foundation for the teachings of the Buddha and helping you to understand this path to enlightenment, to be able to train your mind to get to the point where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings in others are completely eliminated through training the mind and uprooting the causes and conditions that are producing this. There's other benefits as well, but I just was interested to kind of introduce to you what enlightenment is just a little bit, because today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be starting with the very first teaching of the Buddha. This is the first day of a 3-part series where I'm going to be helping students to go into detail on the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is the path to enlightenment. What you're going to be learning today after our meditation is what is the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, what is the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And we're also going to be studying what's called right intention as well. You guys will see when I introduce you to what I'm going to be sharing with you today is essentially the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. And this is where a student would start. If you're brand new to understanding these teachings, or even if you've been learning for a little bit, I'm going to be sharing with you based on the original words of the Buddha, which is very rare in the world. Most places don't actually teach based on the original words of the Buddha. So I'm going to share with you what his original words are on these particular topics, and then I'm going to help walk you through them so you can learn, examine, and investigate his teachings. You can reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you can practice them in order to integrate them into your life and see the real results of having trained your mind through the teachings of the Buddha. So welcome to all of you guys here, and welcome to everyone online. As I mentioned, I'm going to start with a meditation because that's how we start each one of our classes. Meditation is an important part of your practice getting to enlightenment, but you wouldn't actually be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. There's much more than just meditation that you would need. An individual wouldn't be able to meditate their way to enlightenment, but you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. So it's an important part of your practice. The way that I start with the meditation is I use some chanting to ease into the meditation, which actually helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you would like to chant along, you're more than welcome. We have the laminated sheets over there on the cabinet that has the chants on there, and you're welcome to chant along with me if you like. And for those of you guys online, you can actually get this through going to buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the daily chanting sheet there. So if you end up getting one of those chanting sheets, you're going to see the Pali words that I'm going to be chanting, and then you're going to see the English translations as well. And if you look at the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself. That during his life, he actually used chanting as a way to help his students remember the teachings. So it's important to understand these aren't a rite or ritual or ceremony or worship or prayer or anything like that. That every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally, because his teachings weren't written down during his lifetime. They weren't written down until afterwards, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. So they needed some way to remember his teachings, because everything that he taught was oral. So every 2 weeks, his students would come together and recite his teachings orally so that it would help them to be able to remember the teachings, because then you can actually practice the teachings if you remember them. And that's where the real results come, is through practicing his actual teachings. So these chants, they're not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship. We don't need to use chanting anymore in order to remember the teachings. We have books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and all these different things. So the reason why I chant is to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect in these chants. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually created these himself, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these things to me out of respect for me. This would be the ego or arrogance. And someone who's gotten to enlightenment, they don't see themselves as above other people, and they don't see themselves as below other people. They understand that everybody's equal, and that we don't have to have this pecking order in our society. So the Buddha wouldn't have seen himself as being above everybody else. He would have just seen himself as being equal to everybody. But if you learn from a teacher of how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and the joy that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. And that's why I think that these chants came from his students either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha wouldn't have handed these kinds of things out and asked people to chant to him, because there's so much admiration and respect in there. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome. You'll hear me chanting, and that's going to ease us into the meditation. Then once we get into the meditation, there's going to be a period of time where I'm guiding you in the meditation. It's kind of like giving you instructions and guidance and teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet, and we're just all meditating together. During this period of time, you'll probably hear a sound here or there. You might hear a car going by, a bird chirping, a dog barking, anything like this could happen. Someone could cough or sneeze here. You're not going to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. If your mind craves permanent quietness, when you hear a sound, you will be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. But that's the mind causing that itself. It's not the outside world. You're going to learn this today in the teachings that I share with you, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So the world is impermanent. It's constantly changing. You're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. So if you don't have a craving for permanent quietness, when you hear a sound, it's like, yeah, of course, that's normal. There's a sound that's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. Then we're going to go back to the chanting as we come out of the meditation, and then that's where I'm going to start today's class. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment, because it's like having a tool belt, and you would need these different positions at different times. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, so I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on this to be able to help you. And anything that I share with you about guidance in your body position, it's just that. It's guidance. It's a recommendation. It's a suggestion. Ultimately, you need to find what's comfortable for you. So you can consider the things that I'm sharing, but if there's something that you find to be comfortable that I don't even share, feel free to do that. You can do whatever you like to feel comfortable with the physical body. These are just suggestions for you. So for the seated position, someone could potentially be on the floor, in a chair, on a bench, or a sofa, or a wheelchair. All these are options for you. So you can sit however you're comfortable. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is going to kind of soften your seat a bit. And then if you're bringing your legs together in the cross-leg position, you would like to just do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it'll impede the circulation in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. So that might be an option for you that you consider as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If you would like to use this, you surely could. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can find whatever's comfortable for you. And the same thing goes for anybody who's in a chair or in a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair or anything like this. You can sit however you're comfortable as well. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you're comfortable. In terms of the upper body, this is helpful if the upper body is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind, and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you would like the mind to be attentive and alert as you're training it. So with the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert so that it can actively be trained. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Because if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull and lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind would be overactive or uptight. So having the upper body in the middle, you can have that attentive and alert mind to be actively trained, and you can also breathe in easily through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease into meditation with the chanting. You guys are welcome to join in. Then I'm going to come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami สวากขาโตมหาเขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิ นับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะพุทธังมะคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today, what I'm planning to do is help you guys understand the first two factors of the Eightfold Path. This is the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path, and this is where a student would actually start with the teachings of the Buddha. The teachings of the Buddha are to guide you to this enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is like I was mentioning at the beginning, where the mind has been trained to the point where it only experiences peace, calm, serenity, and contentedness with joy. This is a permanent mental state that you can experience, and you'll be experiencing that all through the rest of your life. You'll notice that the mind is focused and concentrated. You'll have clarity of mind and deep memory, because there's certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind, and he figured out the tools and the techniques to uproot those out of the mind. And when you uproot them out of the mind, your mind will perform optimally. There'll be focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships will be really blossoming. There's probably certain relationships right now that you have where there might be some bitterness and harshness and hostility in those relationships. And it's important for you to understand that you can transform that bitterness and harshness and hostility that you're experiencing, that's coming from your own mind. It's not coming from the other person. And you can actually transform this and get to the point where you're no longer being bitter and harsh and hostile. And because of that, your personal, professional relationships will be at ease. They'll be really blossoming. You get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood any longer, that the causes and conditions that are producing this have been uprooted out of the mind. So I'm going to be sharing this with you over the course of the morning, the first two steps of the Eightfold Path. And as we go, you're always welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. If you'd like to ask questions, I'm going to be pausing at different times. And for those of you guys here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl. Just get a microphone, press the gray button. You're going to see lights come on, and then you can just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can just keep these with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, so you can just keep it with you. And then if you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, because that way we won't get any feedback through the speakers, that would be great. And for anybody who's online, if you'd like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. So when we talk about this path to enlightenment, we're talking about this eightfold path. The Buddha taught this entire path of how to train your mind. And yes, there's meditation that's part of that, but there's other teachings that you would need in order to be able to learn and understand and implement to your day-to-day life. In order to be able to get to enlightenment, you would need to know the eightfold path inside and out, backwards and forwards, up, down, left, right, backwards, forwards. You need to know it like the back of your hand, because in order for you to practice it, you need to understand it and really deeply commit it to your memory. So over the next 3 Sundays, I'm going to be helping students to be able to understand what is the path to enlightenment by spending time in each class session to go in detail about each individual section, because this is the path for enlightenment. Every single human being who's interested in getting into enlightenment would need to understand this eightfold path. And we're going to be discussing the wisdom section today, which is part 1 of a 3-part series. I'm going to be helping you understand what is right view and right intention. But then as we go forward in the next 2 Sundays, I'm going to be helping students understand the moral conduct section, which is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Because as long as you're out there doing things that are unwise and harmful to others through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood, this harm is going to come back to you. The Buddha's not teaching you rules or commandments. He's not trying to convince you to do anything. He's not teaching you a bunch of beliefs or anything like this. He's not teaching you rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. He's explaining to you the wisdom of these natural laws, that when you function in a certain way, either wisely or unwisely, you're going to experience the results of that. So he's going to help you to be able to see the moral conduct and how to practice in a way that'll produce the very best results for you. But then you don't believe those teachings. You need to learn them, examine them, investigate them, reflect on them to independently verify them, and practice them. And as you do, you're going to see that your relationships really improve, that the condition of your mind's improving, your relationships are improving, your life is improving, because you're now understanding these natural laws and you're functioning in a way that is wise. So I'm going to be sharing that next Sunday. And then ultimately, we're going to get to the mental discipline section, which he talks about how to actively train the mind on a day-to-day basis, because you would need that mental discipline in order to implement the moral conduct. You wouldn't be able to learn the moral conduct and just snap your fingers and instantly start practicing it perfectly. This is gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. Sometimes people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment, but this isn't actually true. It takes gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And you know this to be true because everything you've ever done in life has been that way. Whether it's learning how to read, write, and speak English, or some job or occupation, it's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And this is the same way. So over the next 3 Sundays, I'm going to be teaching each section of this Eightfold Path. So you can attend here at the temple, or you can attend through the live stream through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. You can attend live, but it's also recorded on our Facebook group and on our YouTube channel, on our podcast, so you can surely learn. And we teach at 9 a.m. here at the temple, and then at 9 p.m. I teach from home because there's other time zones right now that are sleeping, like in Europe. So this evening at 9 p.m., I'll be teaching again, so the people in Europe and other places of the world will be able to actually learn. So if you would like to learn how to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state, there's support, there's help here for you. You need to just decide that you're done with this anger and frustration and you're interested in experiencing this better way of life. And all the books, videos, podcasts, audiobooks, courses, classes, retreats, personal guidance, it's all available at no cost. So I'm going to help you to understand what is right view to get us started. And these are the original words of the Buddha. In order to be able to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to know the true teachings of the Buddha. Because now, 2,500 years after his death, there's a lot of misunderstanding in the world about his teachings. There's over 500 million people who consider themselves Buddhist, but a very, 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 very small percentage of those are actually learning with the original words of the Buddha. Because the Buddha's teachings are in 45 books that are this thick, and most people don't have access to that, right? So we make it available to people at no cost. So I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one that studies and practices and shares the original words of the Buddha. So you would need these original words to be able to understand what did he teach and what he didn't teach. And then you don't believe what he's teaching you. You learn it, examine it, investigate it intellectually. Then you reflect on it to verify if it's true or false, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And then you practice it, integrating it into your day-to-day life, and that's where the transformation of your mind is occurring as you're getting rid of these pollutions. And I'm going to show you how to do this three-step process with these teachings. But first, let's just see what the Buddha says about right view. These are his words about that factor of the Eightfold Path. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So what he's talking about here is that another teaching. He's pointing to something that's called the Four Noble Truths. And he's saying that's right view over there. So what I've done here is under this line, I put the top section of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths goes on from here, but I've put this top section so you can build confidence that what the Buddha is talking about here in the Eightfold Path is right view is the Four Noble Truths, because you can see the connection here between the two. What he's saying is that the Four Noble Truths is right view, and then you would go learn the Four Noble Truths, because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else plugs into and connects into it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths, because this is where you can have a real breakthrough. You can understand once and for all what's causing your anger and your sadness and your frustration, your guilt and your shame, your stress, your anxiety, your fears, your loneliness, your boredom, the shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings are actually being caused by the same thing. Oftentimes people think it's other people that are causing you to feel this way, but what you're going to be able to see today in a way that you can independently verify is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And this is very empowering for you, because if your mind is causing these feelings, that means you can actually eliminate them. Whereas if it was other people who are causing you to feel a certain way, you would never be able to eliminate that, because you can't control what other people choose to do. And there's 8 billion people in the world, so you never would be able to eliminate your discontent feelings if it was other people that was causing them. So the Buddha wouldn't have been able to get to enlightenment if it was other people who were causing his feelings. So you don't need to go out into the world and change other people. You need to just understand the wisdom of how your mind's functioning and how it's working, and you can have this breakthrough to being able to see what's actually causing these feelings, and then you can learn the tools and the techniques of how to uproot those causes and conditions and experience this improved mental state, this better way of life, this enlightened mental state. So in order for you to understand the Four Noble Truths, I need to first explain to you something called the Three Universal Truths. These are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. And we call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But in order for you to benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why when you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to listen with eager ears. You would like to actively listen to the teachings of the Buddha. And you would like to independently verify whether they're true or false. You're not interested in believing what I have to share with you here. The Buddha isn't teaching you the way the world should be. And then if everybody follows certain rules and commandments, the world will be a better place. He's teaching you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, you will then navigate it more peacefully. Because if you live in a world that you don't understand, you will struggle. You will have difficulties. That's what the anger and the stress and the anxiety and the frustration and all that is showing you that you don't understand this world yet, that you're frustrated by living in this world. Because Just like we struggled with the natural law of gravity, this natural law was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. We struggled with that natural law for many years when we were first born and throughout our early years in life. But as we cultivated wisdom of that natural law, we don't struggle with it anymore. We completely understand it, and now we make wise decisions based on it, and we can navigate the world more peacefully. But there's other natural laws that your mind is unaware of that you're currently struggling and challenged by, and that's where the stress and the anxiety and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings are essentially coming from. So as I share these teachings with you, it's important to have active listening, eager ears, where you're actively working to understand. And then as I pause, you're welcome to ask any and all questions. So I'm going to help you to understand the way the world is through these teachings. So this first universal truth is the universal truth of impermanence. This is where the Buddha is helping you to understand that the world is constantly changing, that it is impermanent. And this is a building block, as I said, for the Four Noble Truths to be able to have this breakthrough. What the universal truth of impermanence is explaining to you is that there's something called conditioned objects. A conditioned object arises, it changes, and it fades away. It's temporary. Right? It arises, it changes, and then it fades away. This is an impermanent object, a conditioned object. So anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are all impermanent. They are constantly changing. There is something called unconditioned object. An unconditioned object does not arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. It is permanent. So, for example, enlightenment itself is an unconditioned object. Once you experience enlightenment, as your mind gets to that point, then it is an unconditioned mental state where the mind has been purified of certain conditions, and now it's a permanent mental state. And the natural laws that the Buddha taught, they are unconditioned as well. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. This is why his teachings from 2,500 years ago are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because he described these natural laws, and these natural laws haven't changed. So everything else in the world is impermanent. It's constantly changing. It arises, changes, and fades away. Anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. Okay, so this is just a little bit of the intellectual learning of this particular universal truth, that things are constantly changing. They are impermanent. They are temporary. But now you don't believe that, because I'm teaching you, don't believe anything I say. Don't believe anything that's written in books. Don't believe anything that anybody else says, right? You need to know the truth for yourself. You need to get to wisdom. So now, not believing that, you've done this intellectual learning, now you move it into reflection, where you start trying to independently verify whether this is true or this is false. So the way that you do this is you look around the world, because you live in this world, and this universal truth is describing the world, and you can look around the world to try to determine whether it's true or false. Because if you can find something that you can see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind that are permanent, now this has been disproven, right? So I suggest you start with something that you're familiar with. You're very familiar with this human body. And ask yourself if this body is permanent or impermanent. If the body is permanent, that means it's been exactly the same your entire life and it's never changed. If this body is impermanent, then that means it's constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and sperm came together, it's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get pimples and moles and wrinkles, we get gray hair, we start losing our hair, we get bigger and smaller, right? We have all these things that are happening, right? The body's constantly changing, right? What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, that means you've had exactly the same people in your life throughout your whole life. If they are impermanent, then that means people have been coming and going in and out of your life since basically you started having relationships. So would you say that your relationships are permanent or impermanent? They are impermanent, right? People are constantly coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? Impermanent? Is it impermanent? Your bank account's impermanent, going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, 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 right? So your bank account's constantly changing. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Constantly changing. So we could just go on and on and on and on. And if you need to do that, you should, because you need to be able to see the world around you. And you need to be able to understand the wisdom of these natural laws, that the things in the world are constantly changing, because this is going to help you when you get to the Four Noble Truths. Because if you look around, you can see on the wood floor that we have these planks. Some of them are longer or shorter. Some of them are one color. Some are different colors, right? We had a certain number of people that we started out the class with, but now more people have come and we have a different number of people, right? This is constant change. If you're looking at a fence that has been painted, you might see the fading of the paint. That is impermanence. If you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanent. Here in Thailand, the sidewalks sometimes go up and down as you're walking, right? Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't have sidewalks. This is all impermanence. Things are constantly changing. Okay? So this is the first universal truth. The second universal truth is explaining to you the unenlightened mind. This is called the universal truth of discontentedness. I'll explain to you guys what this is and help you to understand it, and then I'll show you how to independently verify it. Some people refer to this as suffering. I don't describe it that way. I'll explain to you how I describe it and how I translate it, and then I'm going to circle back and help you understand why I don't use the word suffering. Because if you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard the word suffering being used here. Okay? So the original word in the original source text is the word dukkha. This word translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. What the Buddha is explaining here is how the unenlightened mind is shaken up. It's unsteady, it's uncalm. That there's essentially three feelings that the mind experiences: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. These are called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, the mind is then going to experience a feeling. Those pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. The painful feelings are things like sadness, anger, frustration, agitation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. And I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a really good example of this, where it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if you were on public transportation and somebody came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Maybe you're dissatisfied. Maybe the mind is uncomfortable, right? This is the neither painful nor pleasant. So what the Buddha is describing here is what the unenlightened mind experiences, that based on some condition, you're now going to experience a feeling. So if you wake up in the morning and it's sunny outside, and you get so happy and so excited that it's sunny outside, that's a conditioned feeling. Based on the condition that the sun is present, you will now be happy. The challenge with that, though, is that now you go take a shower and you come out and you see it's raining. Well, because your feeling of happiness was based on the sun, and the sun is not permanent, that means that your happiness is not permanent. Because now when it's raining, you're frustrated or agitated. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness yet, is because your mind's basing its inner feelings on some condition. If you get really happy and excited when your bank account balance is up here, then that means when it goes down here, you'll be sad and frustrated. Right? So this is the challenge that the unenlightened mind has, is that the mind's going up and down, up and down, up and down. The enlightened mind is beyond this, that the mind is just always happy. It's always cheerful. It's always glad, because it's been trained to not base its inner feelings on some condition. So where an unenlightened being will get happy when it's sunny and sad when it rains, for example, an enlightened being would already be happy before they ever saw it was sunny outside. And then if it starts raining, they would just be like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to stay home. I'm going to go to the mall, maybe invite my friends over for dinner. You would just be able to do something else and maintain your peacefulness and maintain your joy, maintain your happiness, because your happiness isn't based on any condition. So an enlightened being is experiencing unconditioned mental qualities rather than these conditional feelings. The conditional feelings, the mind's shaken waking up, it's going up and down and up and down. Okay, so this is the second universal truth, where your mind is experiencing conditioned feelings. Based on some condition, you're going to feel some way about that. And those feelings are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away, ultimately leaving the mind unsatisfied. Okay, so again, this is the teaching part of this. But now that you've started to understand it intellectually, now you move it into reflection and you start trying to independently verify if this is true. Because you know right now that your mind is unenlightened, and you can look at your life and you can look at all the different feelings that you've experienced and ask yourself, is this what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant? And is it based on some condition? Because if there's any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, then this isn't a universal truth. So when we get to the question period, if you have questions about that, let me know. Now, like I mentioned, some people refer to this as suffering. I don't refer to it that way because, in my opinion, the word suffering really explains the painful feelings very well. That when you're angry or sad or frustrated or any of these other feelings like guilt and shame and fear and stress and anxiety, you'd probably say you were suffering in that situation. But if your boss came in and gave you a raise and was like, hey, we're going to give you an extra $20,000 a year, and you got really excited, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not. Right? Or if your mom called you up and said, hey, I'm going to come visit you this weekend. We're going to cook that favorite meal that you always enjoy eating. And you got really excited. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering. Right? Or if maybe that person you don't know came in on public transportation and you were sitting close to them and your body was touching their body and you were experiencing those neither painful nor pleasant feelings of dissatisfaction, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. So if we use this word suffering, it doesn't describe the full spectrum of emotions and feelings that the Buddha is talking about in the unenlightened mind. So it doesn't bring your mind to fully understand what he's actually teaching you. You only would understand about 33% of what he was teaching. So you're missing 66%. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever experience the ultimate goal and the results, essentially getting to enlightenment? So I encourage you to use this word discontent, discontented, or that the mind is experiencing discontentedness, because that'll bring your mind to fully understand the full problem here. Because ultimately what you're going to need to understand is that these conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. The conditioned pleasant feeling, if you allow your mind to get so happy based on some condition, when that condition changes, then your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond these conditioned feelings. Your mind is experiencing the unconditioned mental qualities of always being happy and always being joyful. There doesn't need to be any condition met. In the unenlightened state, this condition has to be met, and 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 then I will be happy, right? If my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, then I will be happy, right? And that means your happiness shrinks. The amount of time you can be happy becomes less and less and less as what you want continues to grow and grow and grow. Okay, so by the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond the conditional nature of these feelings, that your mind is just always uplifted, glad, joyful, and peaceful. So you need to be able to understand that this word discontentedness is helping you to understand that these pleasant feelings and these neither painful nor pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem, because it's the mind forming conditioned feelings. And as long as you allow the mind to form conditioned pleasant feelings, it will also form conditioned painful ones as well. So the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness helps you to be able to understand that much better. Then there's something called the universal truth of non-self, which I'll help you to understand what this is. You can understand this today, but sometimes people have challenges to understand it, so I will explain it to you. But just understand that not everybody will understand it by the end of today, and you don't actually need to understand this one 100% in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, which is what I'll teach you next. This universal truth of non-self is a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. We talk about the individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered. There's these 10 individual pollutions. They're referred to as the 10 fetters. These are the taints or the defilements or the pollutions we refer to them as. The reason why they're referred to as fetters is because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a prisoner and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball. And they would basically keep you in an open field, where nowadays we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would attach a fetter to your ankle, and this would keep you confined to that area. So when he discovered these 10 pollutions, he referred to them as a fetter, because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, where you keep experiencing anger and frustration and all these other feelings over and over and over again. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're working to eliminate these fetters. These 10 fetters. You're working to get rid of them out of your mind. And that's where the mind experiences the peace and the joy. It's free. It's now liberated because it's eliminated these 10 fetters. Well, the very first fetter is called personal existence view. This is the first pollution. The Buddha talks about it and explains how this particular fetter is causing you to experience the certain difficulties and certain struggles, certain discontentedness in your day-to-day life. That what the mind's doing with this personal existence view is it's clinging, holding on to your body or holding on to your mind and craving this permanence, wanting things to be a certain way. That you're clinging to a self-image or clinging to a self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. So now, if you're in a certain environment and you experience agreeable contact about this self-image, for example, someone says, "Wow, you're so beautiful. Ah, you're so handsome." That shirt brings out the color of your eyes. You're like, wow, they're talking about me. Yeah, all right. I feel good. But because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading or disparaging about this physical body. And now you're frustrated, you're agitated or annoyed. Or say, for example, you're at a social situation and you spill something on your clothing, like spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream, right? And now you might feel embarrassed. That embarrassment is arising because you have a certain perception that you want other people to perceive you as. The mind is clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived a certain way. And when you're being perceived that way, you feel happy or excited. But when you're not being perceived that way, you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed, right? Or say that you look in the mirror and you got a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, or you start losing your hair. You might look in the mirror, you might be shaken up by this. Right? This is because the mind's clinging to a certain self-image, wanting others to perceive you a certain way. And you can only be happy when those things are happening. And when those things aren't happening, then you're angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. If you were like me when I was a child, growing up as a teenager, I would, before going to school, get out the gel and the mousse, and I would rub this all through my hair and trying to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I would go to school. And I couldn't go outside and go to school until I had every little hair in exactly the right spot. And sometimes I did this for so long, I would miss the bus, right? And this was the results of my decisions, right? I didn't feel comfortable going outside until every little hair was in the right spot. Or maybe you've stood in front of your closet and you've thought about, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to appear? Oh, that favorite shirt or that favorite pair of pants or skirt or dress or jewelry or whatever it is. You wanted to have that before you would go out. And then maybe you put it on, you're like, that's not right. And then you would switch clothes. That's not right. And you put on another, okay, this is the way I want to look today, right? The mind is having personal existence view where it's clinging to a certain self-image, confused and misunderstanding, thinking that this body is you, and now you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only be happy if things are in that way. And if you're not being perceived that way, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed or embarrassed or some other feeling. Then there's the self-identity. This is what the mind is clinging to and holding on within the mind based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You could be clinging to any number of these kinds of things, thinking that this is who you are as a person. For example, I am American, or I am Canadian, or I am Chinese, or I am a Brit, or I am Brazilian, or I am Lithuanian. Any of this I am around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. And now, as long as that's intact, you might feel good. But then when things start changing, and they will change, now you might be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. So for example, if you've ever been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you thought that I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend, while you guys were together, there might have been a certain amount of happiness there. But when you guys broke up, you didn't identify with I am single. So now you might have felt uncomfortable in that situation, and you might have felt the way to solve this problem is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship again, so that you could reassume that identity of I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. Or say you've ever done a certain job or occupation, and now maybe you identify with something like I am a police officer, or I am a taxi driver, or I am a food server. If you have this I am a police officer in your mind, now when you're doing that job, you're happy, you're excited. But then maybe you get injured, maybe you get fired or laid off, something like this, and now you're a taxi driver. Right? And you can't do that job anymore. Maybe you retire and you feel like a part of you is missing. You feel like you're not whole anymore because I am not a police officer anymore. I'm a taxi driver, and the mind doesn't identify that way. And it might really struggle during this period of time. You can have any number of things. I am this or I am that. So let's just take like a nationality. If you think that I am Chinese, or I am a Brit, or I am Italian, or I am an Aussie, or I am Canadian, any of this I am. Now when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, they're saying all Chinese people are loving and kind and warm and gentle, or all Americans are this, that, or the other thing. It's like, wow, you feel so great because they're talking about you. But now, 2 tables over, somebody else is saying something degrading and disparaging about the country that you come from. If you have that identity in your mind of thinking that that's who you are as a person, now you will really struggle with that, and you'll get frustrated, agitated, or annoyed because they're talking about me. Right? But what the Buddha is teaching you with this universal truth of non-self is he's explaining to you there is no self. That there is no you, that this body that you're clinging to and thinking that this is who you are, this body is impermanent. It's constantly changing. If you cling to this and expect it to be permanent, well, now you're going to be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed when you're not being perceived in the world the way you want to be perceived through your self-image. And the same thing is true about your identity, that if you cling to that, you're not going to be able to experience permanently agreeable contact about your identity. So if you cling to any of these kinds of things, your mind will be shaken up. You'll be upset. You'll be frustrated. It'll be discontent. One time I had a student that contacted me. It was shortly after COVID. And they are like, David, I have a real problem right now. Ever since COVID, I go into these different places and I'm paying for things. And in the past, I just give them cash and move on with my day. But now, because of COVID, I need to use this contactless payment system. And they're turning around their computer screen to me. And it says, tip 20%, 25%, 30%, what have you. And he's like, I am a great tipper. And in these situations, I don't tip. And I'm very confused and I'm conflicted and I don't understand why. Why do I feel so uncomfortable in these situations? He's like, I'm a great tipper and I go into these places. It's like I order a coffee. It takes me all of 30 seconds to order this coffee. I don't feel like I should have to tip, but yet they're showing me this computer screen that I'm supposed to tip and I don't tip and I feel very uncomfortable. And I am a great tipper. And I was like, that's your personal existence view. You're clinging to the idea that I am a great tipper. And when you tip, you feel great. You feel wonderful. But when you don't tip, you're feeling uncomfortable because your mind is clinging to this idea that I am a great tipper, right? So your mind can cling to any number of things as part of your self-identity or your self-image, right? The mind will cling to this body or to cling to this mind. And what the Buddha teaches you is that there is no self. Sometimes people have such challenges with this personal existence view that they come to places like Thailand or other places in search of themselves. They might be at their home country and they think, I don't even know who I am anymore. I feel so lost and confused in this world. I don't even know who I am. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. And they will organize a trip. They will come to Thailand for an extended period of time or other places in search of themselves. They're looking for their true self. Well, what the Buddha teaches you is that there is no self. You're not going to find yourself here in Thailand because it doesn't exist. Some people might find new hobbies or new friends or new activities, maybe a new job or something like that, but none of that stuff is you. As soon as you cling to it and you think that this is who you are as a person, when all that stuff starts changing, and it will change because of impermanence, now you're lost and confused again. So somebody might go home after being here for several months or a year or so, and they're like, I found myself. Family, I'm back. Welcome. I'm back now. I found myself. Again, they find maybe new hobbies, new activities, new friends, new job or something like this, but they haven't truly found themselves. They've just found some activities and hobbies and things like this that they're clinging to, and they're identifying with that as who they are. And now, 5 years from now, when all that stuff changes, they're going to be right back in the same problem, that they don't know who they are anymore because all that stuff has changed. So the Buddha is teaching you not to cling to this body or this mind thinking that this is who you are. Not clinging to the self-image or not clinging to the self-identity. And this is how you get to peace and joy, at least a portion of it. You need to eliminate that personal existence view, that pollution or that taint or that fetter that is causing the mind to cling and hold on and thinking that this is who you are. So this is the intellectual learning, right? It takes me a little bit longer to teach you this one because it's a bit more deep. And again, not everybody understands it at first, but even if you understand it just slightly, now let's take it into reflection and start to independently verify if there is a self or not, right? So here's the way you do this with this particular teaching. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and now. Your personality, your character, how you viewed yourself. Has it been exactly the same through all those 4 stages of life, or has it been constantly changing? It's changing, right? You haven't viewed yourself the same way because you can see there's no permanent self. Or here's another way. Say your arm is amputated and you only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person? If you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Eamon says no. What about the rest of you guys? No, you're not less of a person? Okay, so there you can see, intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. Because otherwise you would answer that question differently. And this is the confusion that the mind has. Right here talking, you can say, no, I'm not less of a person. There's less body, so if this body is you, you would say, there's less body, so yes, I'm less of a person. But intellectually, you understand this body isn't you because you said, no, I'm not less of a person. But in the heat of the moment, your mind's confused and it has misunderstanding. That's what that fetter of personal existence view is that when somebody says something either positive or negative about this body, you're going to form feelings about that, either pleasant or painful feelings as a result of someone commenting about this body, because the mind has that confusion and misunderstanding, that misperception. It doesn't see true reality, that this body is not you. And now here's a third way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Eamon says he's here. Where are you? Here? Okay. So different people will point different places, right? Sometimes people point here, sometimes people point here. There's different places that people will point. Okay, but let's just say somebody points here and they say, I am here. Right? And they're pointing to their chest. Well, you need to look at what you're pointing to. What are you literally pointing to? You're pointing to a shirt or some article of clothing, right? So you need to ask yourself, is this who you are? This shirt. If you took off this shirt and held it up and pointed to it, is that you, that shirt you're wearing? Is that who you are? No, that's not you? Okay, so we'll throw away the shirt. Where are you? And now someone might point again. Well, what are you pointing to? You're pointing to skin. Is that who you are? That skin you've got? Is that you? We took off the skin and held it up and pointed to it. Is that you? No, that's not you. Okay, so we throw that away. Where are you? Right? Someone might point again, right? They're pointing to muscle tissue, bones, organs, fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you. But the mind's going to cling to this, thinking that this is who you are. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self, that your mind realizes that none of this stuff is you. And it takes training to be able to do that. Oftentimes, people have challenges to understand what I'm talking about in this particular case, but even if you understand it intellectually, it's a whole nother thing to go out there in the world and practice it. When somebody starts saying something positive or negative about this body or about any identity that you're clinging to in your mind, so there's certain teachings and certain tools and techniques that you can implement that's going to help you strip this away and realize non-self. So when we get to chapter 16 of this group learning program, I'm going to be teaching you all about the ego and how to dissolve the ego, because you're going to need to eliminate that in order to get to enlightenment. And personal existence view is part of the ego. So there's other tools and techniques. So we're going to spend a lot more time talking about this and then giving you the solutions of how to fix it. But right now, I'm just introducing this. So these are the three universal truths. Do you guys have any questions on any of these? Remember, here at the temple, if you could use the microphones, and those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any and all questions that you like, just by unmuting your microphone. Okay, so it looks like we have some questions online here. Let's see. This is from Buddhism Philippines. Can you describe the beginning of the universal truth of non-self again? The internet cut out. Chris, the universal truth of non-self is helping you to understand that this is the solution to the fetter of personal existence view, that the mind is confused, and that when it has personal existence view, it has confusion or misunderstanding or misperception, that the mind thinks that this body is you or that this mind is you. So the mind will cling to the self-image or the self-identity, and now it can't be content and peaceful because it's wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. All right. So then Arvind has a question. Dear Teacher David, is the enlightened mind a permanent state once it is achieved, or is it subjective to falling down again? No, it's actually a permanent mental state, Arvind. Even the first stage of enlightenment, once you get to the first stage, because there's 4 individual stages, once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, your mind won't regress backwards from there. And once you get to enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state. It's impossible for the mind to become polluted again. So you can see that some of these fetters, they can go dormant for a period of time, and then they can rise back up. But in that situation, the fetter hasn't actually been eliminated. It's still there. It's just dormant. But once you completely eradicate the fetters, the Buddha talks about it as destroying it. He talks about, cutting it off at the palm stump so that it's no longer subject to future arising. And once you accomplish that with all the 10 fetters, they will never be able to come back into the mind again. It's kind of like a weed. If you had a weed that was growing and you pulled the roots out of the ground, this weed could never grow again because it gets shriveled up by the sun, right? So it's the same thing with the mind, that once it's been fully purified, it will never again experience anger or sadness or frustration or any of these other discontent feelings, because it's physically impossible, because the causes and conditions that are producing it have been uprooted out of the mind. Okay, let me see if we have any questions anywhere else. Oh, we have one coming in here at the temple. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's working. I just wanted to understand where we are in the Buddha's teaching. So right now, these 3 universal truths are the part of the right view. So the part of the wisdom, right?
Yeah, it's going to help you to understand right view. It's like a building block to be able to help you understand the 4 Noble Truths. Right view itself is the 4 Noble Truths, but in order to understand that, you would need to know the 3 Universal Truths. So by nature of that, they're connected. Mm-hmm. You have a question? Yeah, just hold it and you'll see the lights come on. It just takes a second to engage. Just need to be patient with it. Do you see the lights? Oh, okay. Maybe the batteries are dead. They're impermanent, just like everything else. See, the Buddhist teachings even describe microphones, even though they didn't exist during his lifetime. There you go. Oh, I think you turned it off. Would you like help?
Yeah.
Okay,
it's better. So I have a question about the conditioned feeling. So, even same incident occurred, my feeling might be different time to time. Let's say my manager was yelling at me because my performance. So one day before I'm learning about mindfulness, I was very sad, painful feeling. But after I had some practice about mindfulness, maybe I don't care anymore, no more painful feeling. So I wonder if we can use conditioned feeling as a scale of progress of mindfulness.
It's still on. It's just impermanent. It's just the frequency goes in and out sometimes.
So if I have a better understanding of mindfulness practice, maybe I can have more a stable feeling, so no more painful feeling or something. So how can we see same incident occur, but my conditioned feeling is always different? So
let me make sure I understand your question. Are you saying how do you get to the stable mind and the stable feelings?
Before I came to Chiang Mai, I was a little bit learning about the mindfulness, and if I understand correctly, one of the goal of mindfulness is more like a stable feeling, no really suffering, extreme painful feeling, a pleasant feeling. So, but like I mentioned, the conditioned feeling is even same things happening, but different. So I just wonder how we can estimate or see my feeling keeps changing, just impermanence, right? So
yeah. So these conditioned feelings, by the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any of these. But when we talk about eliminating things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, some people are like, what are you talking about? Like, I live for that stuff. Like, that's what I want in my life. But what we're talking about is eliminating the conditionality of these things. Because with the unenlightened mind, you can only experience those feelings when there's some condition that's present. So when it's sunny outside, I will be happy. Or when the bank account balance is here, I'll be happy. What an enlightened being is experiencing is they're beyond the conditionality of this, that they're experiencing the unconditioned happiness, where the mind is just always happy and it's unconditioned, that there is no condition that is required to be present in order for the mind to then be happy. So right now, you probably experience all of these things where your mind goes up and down and up and down. But you can get to the point where you've trained it so well that your mind's just always uplifted. It's always bright. It's always radiant. Sometimes when we talk about eliminating all of these things, people say like, wouldn't I just feel numb then? Wouldn't I just have no feelings at all? And the answer is no, you're not going to have this numbness. Your mind's going to be bright. It's going to be cheerful. It's going to be glad. It's going to be radiant. It's going to be uplifted. But your mind's not going up and down and up and down. You're just always in this heightened mental state. So the happiness that you experience in the unenlightened mental state, usually it's like, I'm so happy, I'm so excited, you're bouncing off the walls. The happiness that we're talking about in the enlightened mental state isn't that. It's where the mind is cheerful and bright and uplifted. It's easy to smile. You're joyful all the time. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world around you. You're just always joyful. You're not joyful because of these things. You're just joyful despite these things. So sometimes people say like, could you still be happy if your mom died? And the answer is yes. The thing that's causing the sorrow and the grief when someone dies is not the love. And you're going to understand that here in a moment. It's not the love that's causing someone to grieve when their family member dies. It's something else. So you're not happy because mom died. You're happy despite that she died because you understand that she's impermanent. So getting to this enlightened mental state is to get beyond the conditionality of the mind going up and down, so you can be in these permanent mental states that are just always present. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Oh, we have one coming in here from Tony. Oh, we have another one back there? Oh, yes, ma'am.
My question is about, I feel like the three universal truths are somehow redundant, like especially the third one, because the first one has already mentioned that nothing is permanent. So why to say there's like the self is not permanent? Because it's just like you say there's nothing in this room, and then you say again there's no book in this room. So what is so special about the self that Buddha mentioned to say the self is impermanent again?
What he's explaining to you is that it would be unwise to cling to the self-image or the self-identity as who you are as a person. So this is a refining to understand that the mind's going to be clinging to these things, trying to form feelings. So this one up here is generally describing the world, and it's that the world is impermanent. Everything around you is impermanent. But that's different than saying nothing is permanent, right? So everything in the world is impermanent, meaning material objects. But now it's important to understand that there are certain things that are permanent, which is the enlightened mental state and the natural laws. These are all permanent. They're unconditioned objects. So what the universal truth of non-self is explaining to you is helping you to understand that your mind is going to cling to this body and this mind, thinking that it is permanent and wanting it to be permanent, when in reality it isn't. And you're going to be forming this self-identity around it, because you need to be able to see this level of detail. Because when you're out there in the world and someone's commenting either positively or negatively about this body or this mind, you're going to have certain feelings about that. And you need to be able to understand what that's coming from and understand what the solution is.
So does it mean like the self is a kind of hallucination?
Yeah, we call it a delusion, or the unknowing of true reality, or a misperception or misunderstanding, or the mind is confused, thinking that there is a self when in reality there isn't. So that's what the Buddha is bringing to your attention, is what is true reality. But then you need to be able to independently verify that and see it for yourself, so that you can have the wisdom of it. It's one thing to just tell you something, but it's another thing for you to independently verify it and see the truth for yourself. And that's why I mentioned that some people will be able to see this early on. Other people, it takes them time to be able to understand this more fully. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so Tony has a question here. Tony asks, "Hi teacher, do enlightened beings still experience emotional shifts, but that they don't cling or grasp onto them?" No, they actually don't. An enlightened being is just always going to be peaceful and joyful. They don't have these ups and downs of the emotions. So they won't experience that. That's something that an unenlightened being will experience, but an enlightened being won't experience those kinds of things. Okay. So, yeah, another question? Yes, ma'am.
I think it's working. Okay. So if I will take the example of the sun that you gave, it's like, it means that, like, everybody has their own preference. So if I like the sun, so the sun will make me feel good. And if I don't like the rain, then I will not feel happy about it. So how can you not experience happiness when you prefer something specific, something, and it's happening?
So it's not a preference. Let me go on here. You're going to understand more here in a second. Okay. So now you're really going to understand. We're going to get to the heart of this question right now. So one more building block here to help you understand before we go into have this breakthrough with the Four Noble Truths. There's something called craving, desire, attachment. This is a mental longing with a strong eagerness. This is like a want or an expectation. The mind is longing, yearning. The mind has like this unquenchable thirst, thinking that external things are going to somehow provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase and chase and chase and chase. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase after these things. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw like a brand new pair of shoes or a new phone or a new video game or something like this, a piece of jewelry, and you were like, oh, I just got to have that. I want that so bad. I just want those shoes so badly, right? And now that's the mind's craving, the desire, the attachment, the craving, the longing, the yearning. It's not the shoes themselves. It's the way the mind is longing, yearning for the shoe. It's pulling towards this thing, thinking that this is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind will be like, experiencing painful feelings like sadness, frustration, or others. And it's like, oh, I know what I need to be happier. I need a new pair of shoes. Let me go get some of those. Oh, I know what I need. Some more money. Let me chase after that. I know what I need. A new boyfriend or girlfriend. Let me get one of those. That'll make everything better in my life. So the mind is longing, yearning, and chasing after these things, forming its inner feelings. That longing, yearning is called craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations. The mind's pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. And now if you go into the shoe store and they have your size, you'll get really excited and really happy about that. But then if they don't have your size, you'll get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So you guys know what I'm talking about here, how your mind's doing this longing and yearning, pulling towards things. You experienced this before? Yeah? Could you use the mic so the people online can hear you? Mm-hmm.
Asking, what about longing for an experience, not something material?
Same thing. The mind can be longing, yearning for that trip to Thailand, right? You get so happy, so excited. Oh, I just can't wait to get to Thailand, right? You're longing, yearning for it, thinking that this is going to make everything in your life better.
What if it makes everything in your life better?
It's not going to. Right? Because now you're so excited about it. You get to the airport and you're so thrilled to go to Thailand, and then your flight's delayed for 3 hours. And now you're frustrated and sitting in the waiting room being grumpy and irritable. This plane can't take off on time. Not every single plane in the world is going to take off on time, because that would be permanence. But there's going to be weather delays, there's going to be maintenance delays, there's going to be crew issues. So as long as you allow your mind to long and yearn and crave, in some situations you're going to get what you want, in other situations you're not going to get what you want. And now your mind's going to end up in those painful feelings. And that's what I have to share with you here next. Let me explain this to you so you'll understand. Okay? So this first noble truth is explaining the problem. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of the problem. The third is explaining the solution or the elimination. And then the fourth noble truth is explaining the path forward of how to fix the problem. So the problem that everyone is experiencing is discontentedness. Each unenlightened being that is unenlightened, they're going to experience this up and down of their emotions. They're going to be happy and excited in some situations. They're going to be sad and frustrated in other situations. They're going to be lonely and bored. They're going to feel uncomfortable. The mind's going up and down and up and down. This is the problem that an unenlightened being is experiencing. The cause of that problem, the cause of discontentedness, is our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent, when in reality you live in an impermanent world. The mind's craving, desiring, it's attached, it's forming its inner feelings based on whether it gets this thing or not. So this discontentedness, the up and down of the emotions, is being caused by the mind's craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of its affection. And if it gets what it wants, it gets those pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation in others. And if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration in others. So let me give you some examples so you can see this, right? Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you first got together with. You were probably so happy, so excited when you guys first got together, right? Maybe this person was calling you and checking in on you, sending you text messages. Maybe you're going out to dinner, you're going to the movies, you're going to the park, having great conversations. Maybe you were having intimate contact with each other, having sex. You're having such pleasant feelings during this period of time. But then over time, there were difficulties and struggles in the relationship, and you guys broke up. And now you might have been angry, or you might have been lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. You might have been frustrated and agitated. It wasn't your love that was causing those emotions and those feelings. It wasn't your care or your concern for this person. What was causing that was the craving, the desire, the attachment, the holding on and wanting this relationship to be permanent. And as long as your mind was holding on, but this person wasn't in your life, there was that anger and frustration or loneliness or boredom because the mind wouldn't let go. So in the unenlightened state, this cravings, desires, attachments is causing the mind to experience discontentedness. You can see it like if you've had a family member or someone close to you that has died. You might have grieved or you might have been sorrowful, right? This wasn't your love, because love is a genuine interest in seeing this being be well. That doesn't actually cause painful feelings. What's causing the painful feelings is that as long as grandma and grandpa, mom or dad or brothers and sisters are alive, your mind's getting what it wants. But then when they die, you're experiencing this impermanence, that this being is not permanent in your life. And your mind is holding on and craving for them to be permanent. And because they were born, they had to die. There was no way around this. But your mind was craving permanence in this situation. Or maybe you've been to a wedding before, and maybe you or the people around you have been grieving or sorrowful or crying during that period of time. Maybe brothers or sisters are going off into the world with a life partner, and now you might be grieving. This isn't your love. This is the mind craving permanence. It's kind of like, that's my brother, that's my sister. You're taking them away from me. Right? But that's not truly what's happening. Your mind is just holding on and craving for them to be in your life permanently. And now when they go off in the world with someone else, your mind's holding on and it's not getting what it wants, which is this permanence. It's craving permanence. Another way to say that the mind is craving permanence is that it does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. Right? If you can think back to when we were children, maybe you got dropped off at university, or maybe you got dropped off at grade school. Maybe you or your parents were crying during that period of time because you're going off into the world without mom or dad, and you were crying. You were upset because you thought mom and dad are permanent. Right? Or let's just say you had a brand new car. You got this brand new car, and now you drive it off the lot, you park it at a store, you go inside, and you come out and you see there's a scratch on your car. You might be angry or sad or frustrated, right? It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing it is the mind is craving this car to be permanent. It wants this car to look permanently beautiful. But this car is impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. These things are going to happen. And as long as your mind craves permanence, when you're experiencing impermanence, your mind doesn't understand that. It doesn't have that wisdom to understand everything around you is impermanent. So when you're experiencing impermanence, your mind doesn't like it. Right? And it's now experiencing frustration or agitation or annoyance because it's living in a world that it doesn't understand. It doesn't understand everything around you is impermanent. So don't believe what I'm sharing with you here, because what I'm sharing with you is that your mind is causing these feelings, that your mind is craving permanence. Don't believe this. You need to be able to independently verify it through your own experiences. Look at a recent situation when you've been angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. It could have been this morning, could have been yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that you wanted, that you expected? And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, the mind was angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. Can you see it? Because what the mind's typically going to want to do is it's going to want to blame other people. That's what the mind typically does. It will blame other people. It will firmly believe that your anger is coming from other people. But if you look at this objectively, you'll be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because when you don't understand the second noble truth, what you're going to do is you're going to attribute these feelings that you're having to something external, and you're going to push away this person, or you're going to push away this situation. You might have done that, where you've pushed family members or friends or coworkers out of your life, thinking that that was going to solve your problem. But you can see it didn't solve the problem because you still experience discontentedness. If this person was the cause of your discontentedness, when you push them out of your life, you would be peaceful from that point forward. But you're not. You can see you still get annoyed. You still get frustrated. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth, that you'll falsely attribute these painful feelings to something external, is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear that being into doing things your way. It's like, right? It's mind longing, yearning. It's craving. It's wanting those cravings fulfilled. It thinks that if I can just fear this person into doing things my way by yelling and hollering and screaming at them, then I'll get what I want. And I'll get my things my way. I'll get those pleasant feelings. Or the third thing that you'll do is you'll try to put your expectations on someone. You might try to pressure them to do things your way. And there might be people doing this to you. There might have been people who've pushed you away, who've been bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or put their expectations on you. And this is all from the mind's craving, desire, attachment, and the lack of wisdom of this second noble truth. That the mind doesn't understand that it's truly causing its own discontent feelings. And you can look at your life and you can see this for yourself. Every single time that you've ever been angry or frustrated, it's been your mind causing it the whole time. Now, that other person could have easily been doing something that's unwise, but that's not what's causing you to be angry or frustrated. It's your own mind craving for this person to do things a certain way. Because in your mind, you have a certain way that you want people to do things. And if they do it that way, you get happy. But if they don't, you're going to get angry or frustrated. The mind is craving this permanence. My way is the right way. Every way else is the wrong way. And when they do it my way, I'll be happy and I like this person. But when they don't do it my way, I'm going to be angry and frustrated and I dislike this person. So that dislike that you have towards other people, it's actually coming from your own expectations, wanting everybody to be a certain way. And you can eradicate this from the mind, but you need to first be able to see what the problem is and what the cause of that problem is. The problem is these discontent feelings that the mind's going up and down and up and down. And the cause of that is the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. And you'll never convince everybody in the world to do your things your way because there's 8 billion people in the world. So if you can only be happy and be caring and loving to people who are doing things your way, there's only ever one person that you're ever going to love or be happy with all the time. Because there's only one person in the world that does things your way. Do you know who that person is? Who does things your way all the time? Yourself. That's it. So if you can only love people who do things your way, there's only one person in the world that you can love. And you might actually have trouble doing that sometimes, is loving yourself, right? So by getting to the understanding of the second noble truth, then you can come to the third noble truth. That if you understand what the cause of the problem is, then the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you eliminate the cause, you will eliminate the effect. You'll eliminate the discontentedness. In the way that you eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way permanently is the fourth noble truth. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the eightfold path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to guide you in transforming your mind and getting to the point where you're completely peaceful and completely joyful. So this is called right view. What wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're having. And if you continue to do that, you'll never solve your problem. This is why you continue to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed, because the mind is blaming other people for the things that you're experiencing, the emotions and the feelings that you're experiencing. But when you establish right view, then you understand what is the problem. You understand the cause of that problem, which is craving, desire, attachment. You understand the elimination, that you can eliminate this through eliminating craving, desire, attachment, and you can do that through the Eightfold Path. So you can verify this for yourself, right? Like back to that boyfriend or girlfriend scenario, right? When you first broke up with that person, like I said, you might have been angry or sad or frustrated or lonely or bored or missing this person. But at some point, you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let him go. In your mind, you let go. Or if she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. and your mind let go. And that's where your peace came back. That's where your joy came back, when your mind let go. But your mind doesn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state. It's holding on and it's clinging and it's craving this permanence. So this Eightfold Path is going to teach you how to let go. And that meditation that we did this morning is part of that, but there's other pieces as well. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on right view or the Four Noble Truths. Remember here, if you guys could use the mics, and then online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom to ask any questions that you like. So does anybody have any questions? Okay, looks like we have a question here. Zoom from Omar. He says, David Roylance, maybe this bright light Arvind is experiencing is, Arvind must add a question here. Let's go back up. Okay, Arvind. Also, during mindfulness meditation, there is a cessation of thought, a cessation of breathing. Arvind, I'm going to talk about this with you another time, because this is about meditation, and I would like to stay focused on the Four Noble Truths for today. We can talk about this. You can send me a private message, Arvind, and we can talk about that. Okay, so now I don't see any questions anywhere on the Four Noble Truths. Let me teach you right intention. This is actually very short, very easy to teach. The first step of right view takes a certain amount of time to teach you, but right intention is actually very straightforward and much more easy to be able to understand and be able to learn it. So here's the words of the Buddha on this second step, which forms the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. He says, in what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So he's talking about three things here: the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Some people translate this as right thinking or right thought, because that's what you're doing here. Is you're establishing the proper thinking or the proper thought, the proper intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is where you're willing to let go and give up your false ideas, your false beliefs, your false opinions, your false views, that you're willing to let go of the unwholesome things that you're currently doing. There's certain unwholesome things that you're currently doing right now that you're going to need to be willing to let go of. And if you didn't have the intention of renunciation to be willing to let these things go, and you're just going to stay the way that you currently are in the world, you won't actually get to enlightenment. So if you're interested in getting to enlightenment, you're going to need to do some inner growth, some inner development, some improvement. You're going to need to be willing to let go of your false beliefs, opinions, and views. But with the teachings of the Buddha, you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. You're bringing in wisdom, right? When you bring in wisdom and you see that this wisdom conflicts with your beliefs, you need to get rid of your beliefs, right? One of the first beliefs that you need to get rid of is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry and frustrated and sad and all these other feelings. As long as you hold on to that false belief, you'll never get to enlightenment. So you need to cultivate the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of these false beliefs, opinions, and views, these unwholesome things that you're doing. Because as you learn on this path, you're going to see so many things that you currently believe about the world are just untrue. And that's why your mind struggles in this world, because it doesn't have the wisdom. It's lacking the wisdom of how the world's truly constructed and how things are actually working. So essentially, the intention of renunciation is to have an open mind, bringing in new wisdom and being willing to let go of the things that are no longer serving you well. So that's the first part. Then intention of non-ill will. Whenever you're looking at English and it has a double negative, that is actually a positive. So non-ill will is the same as saying goodwill. This is the intention of goodwill or loving kindness, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, without judgment, where you have active goodwill towards all beings. You're not judging them to determine whether you should be loving or kind with them. Instead, you're cultivating in your mind the intention or the thinking or the thought that you would like to be loving and kind with all beings, without judging them to determine whether they deserve your love or kindness. Right? Sometimes we're taught that don't respect others until they respect you. Right? If everybody was practicing this, nobody would be respecting anybody, because it's like, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. Well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. Okay, nobody's respecting anybody then, right? Or if I'm not going to love you until you love me first, well, if everybody's practicing that, then nobody's loving anybody. So what the Buddha is teaching you is to get rid of this animosity, this bitterness, this anger, this hatred, and all these lesser versions like frustration, agitation, or annoyance. He's going to ultimately give you the tools in the mental discipline section of how to do that. But here in the wisdom section, you need to build the wisdom to understand that this is the wise way to conduct yourself in the world, being loving and kind with all people around you, having the intention or the thinking or the thought of goodwill towards all beings, or non-ill will towards all beings, loving kindness. Then there's the intention of harmlessness. This is where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because what you learn on this path is that any harm that you put out, it's just going to come back to you. You can look in your relationships and you can see where you're bitter and harsh and hostile. Those people are bitter and harsh and hostile with you too. Right? Because that's what you're putting out. That's what's coming back to you. So as long as you put out harmfulness, then harm is going to come back to you. So you need to have the thinking or the thought or the intention that you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. And that is based in the natural laws, that any time you put out harm, this harm is going to come back to you. So these are the three aspects of right intention, or the right thinking, or the right thought, which rounds out our wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. So right view is the Four Noble Truths, essentially accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. You need to be able to see that all that stuff is coming from your own decisions. It's not other people that are causing these things in your life. Oftentimes people blame others. This is very common. We all do this when we have a lack of wisdom, but it's not other people that are causing these things. It's actually coming from your own mind, and you can independently verify that for yourself. And by accepting responsibility and accountability for your own thoughts and feelings and emotions and all these things, the beauty in this is that you can transform it. Again, if it was other people that was causing these feelings and emotions, you'd never be able to change it, because it's other people who are causing these things, and you can't change other people. So by you accepting responsibility, this actually empowers you to now change it, because it's your own mind that can be transformed. Then right intention is to practice the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false beliefs, false opinions, and views. And you're doing that through bringing in wisdom, right? And you're also eliminating your unwholesome aspects of your life in terms of your moral conduct and certain unwholesome thoughts and ideas that are in your mind. Then you would like to have the intention of non-ill will or goodwill, which is loving kindness, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, and the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. And this is something that you cultivate. You can't just snap your fingers today and be practicing all three of these perfectly. You're going to need to dial this in closer and closer. So essentially, this Eightfold Path, one of the ways you can think about it is that if you had a speaker system and you had 8 dials and you were tweaking these dials to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, it's the same thing for your mind. You can tweak these 8 dials, bringing your mind closer and closer to practicing these for an elongated period of time. And you're going to be tweaking your mind. And your mind's going to be performing more and more optimally. Just like that speaker system is going to have a better and better sound coming out of the speakers, your mind's going to start performing better and better because it's been fine-tuned, it's been refined, it's been purified. So this is the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. Right view, accepting responsibility for your own feelings, understanding that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing those, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. If you get what you want, you're happy, you get pleasant feelings, but if you don't get what you want, you get the painful feelings. Then there's the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. So do you guys have any questions on anything that I've shared with you today? Remember, if you guys could use the mics here and then online, if you could put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, it looks like we have a question in Zoom. So the Philippines is asking, what is the difference between goodwill and active goodwill? Active goodwill is where you're actively doing something. Your mind is actively participating in this goodwill, where you're not just sitting back, just kind of casually thinking about these things, but you're actively involved in cultivating this goodwill within your own mind. And then ultimately, you're going to need to practice that through your intentions, your speech, your actions, right? That it's not just a thinking or a thought, that you're actively practicing it through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood. Because sometimes we have certain intentions in the unenlightened state, but our speech and our actions don't match that intention. And what you need to be able to do is get to the point where all this stuff is in sync, right? So that's what you would ultimately like to get to there, Chris. Okay. So I don't see any questions anywhere else. So what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for being interested in the path to enlightenment and the teachings of the Buddha. As you guys would like to learn more, you're more than welcome to, either here at the temple or through our live stream, through Zoom, through our recorded classes, and all of our other resources. It's all available to you at no cost, and it's all based on this Eightfold Path, using the original words of the Buddha. And there's connected teachings here as well. There's a whole path for you to be able to learn and grow and develop, but it all starts with right view. If you didn't understand that it was your own mind that was causing these feelings, why would you ever do any work to improve? Right? So one of the ways to think about the teachings of the Buddha is it's like the best, most well-vetted self-help program that you've ever found, because it's been around for 2,500 years for a reason, because it works. But it starts with you understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because if it was anybody else, they should be here, right? You're already perfect. They're the ones who should be here at the temple learning. But no, this is a practice for you to grow and to develop and become a better and better human being. And that's what the path to enlightenment is all about, is doing this inner growth, this inner development, looking inward, being introspective, and working on this mind and healing from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is actually inside your own mind. It's not the outside world. So if you guys would like to learn more, this Wednesday, I'm going to be teaching meditation, and then we're going to be doing meditation together. So I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of breathing mindfulness meditation, which is the meditation we did this morning. This is actually an important component of training the mind to let go. And then we're going to actually do the meditation together. This Friday, we have a game night where we have a kind of a social activity here where students come and we just hang out socially. You know, we kind of have music playing. We play some board games, we bring some food and drinks. Typically people will bring some stuff, and we just kind of hang out and have like a little party at the temple. So if you guys would like to come for that, you're welcome to come. Bring people that you know. You're welcome to bring people. You don't have to, but you're more than welcome to bring anybody and anybody that you like. On Friday at 6 p.m., we're going to be doing that here. And then on Saturday, Sunday, next weekend, we have classes again, just like we do each Saturday and Sunday. And next week, we have a course that's starting called Experiencing the Jhanas in the 4 Stages of Enlightenment. This is a 5-day course from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You guys can see all the details on the website, or you're welcome to come talk to me, and I'll be able to help you. You can see all the events on the bulletin board over there, or on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You'll be able to see all the events that we have here and that we live stream them, so you can really attend no matter where you are in the world. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day, and perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.